So just thinking about, you know, where you guys started, where you began, you kind of built that skeleton product for your initial couple of customers. What was the kind of time scale to get from, you know, that initial product to, I can remember, as we were saying earlier, you guys demoing the Universe product as it was then in Las Vegas in Google Next. What was the sort of time scale there? Was that like a few months or years, or, you know, what was that journey like?
It's an interesting question. So Happeo is a platform which actually has taken long time to develop, because it's not only solving kind of like one single small problem, because it's kind of like this internal communication platform for large organizations. So what does it mean is that all the backend and front end that have been needed to be built before, so it has taken multiple months before. And it was interesting because obviously we were running during that time the consulting business at the same time.
Sure, yeah.
And during that time it was part of that. All the time we knew that the companies would be separated, and the internal culture was also kind of like separate already, but the business just tend to be in the same organization before we fully separated then. So but before that it takes time. Like
it does.
I would say that getting the minimum viable product, 6 to 12 months or so.
At least,
so
and then you guys have constantly iterated, obviously, since then. That's an interesting point that you make about the company splitting, and I think that, like I said, when you look at some of the other organizations who've done that, you've got Better Cloud that came out of Cloud Sherpa, the Sherpa tool, if you recall. You've been in the industry long enough as well, same as me. Not everyone will remember that. And there's countless other examples of partners who've sort of created these tools, and the companies have often separated out. What was the key decision around that? Like, when did that conversation come about, and was it widely accepted, or were there, you know, what was the kind of tension or not around that?
No, because that was all the time the plan that the companies would be working separately. I discussed already in the early days actually with David Politis from Better Cloud, and heard from him as well that what was the value? What's the best, and they are different kind of organizations and dynamics. So that was clear from the beginning, and there was no like any kind of like.
It made sense. I think everybody gets it.
So that's.
And in terms of the change from a services business to a product business, you know, that's a big change as well. Do you know what I mean? Because I run a services business, I understand that. So I'd understand the Gaps business more than the Happeo one. Obviously I understand the product, but the business side, it is very different running a product business. How was that change for yourself, you know, at the top, and other people in the organization? Was that a difficult transition, or was there mentors or training or things that you had to kind of, you know, get or pick up?
Obviously I have discussed with multiple other SaaS founders, but I would say that you learn obviously already from the any kind of business how to run the business in general. There are some things that are kind of like bit different, some details, and obviously when you need to invest so heavily in front of things, especially when building this kind of platform in the product before you kind of like establish all the business side of it, so that requires some investment at the beginning. So that's different.
I think that's the big difference, isn't it? That like
you never kind of like fully know that when it's gonna kind of like the market entry is happening and estimating these things. So especially at the beginning, it's kind of like interesting. Obviously you
get more structured as you go along.
But the first few months, I would say even a year and a half, it's definitely interesting how to actually structure it and how to do the step by step.
And the strategy. The strategy piece has got to be very, very different from the services side, as you said. You've got to keep ahead of the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the hard. You're keeping ahead of that wave all the time. I can remember this now, a very extreme example, but I remember this product back in the olden days of Google 10 years ago. And it was a sync tool that just allowed you to sync your calendar and contacts with Google. And at the time, some people may not believe this, but at the time Google had no way for you to sync your calendar and contacts with your phone.
Yeah.
And Google then released a tool that could do that. And so overnight, this business was killed off. And it was very risky. Certainly, they made their money, I suppose, for a few years. But I think there is that danger of having to keep ahead of Google, of other vendors in the marketplace. How has that kind of been for you guys? It's obviously you have to have a strategy around that in a way that in a service business you do, but not to the same extent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, in service business, when you scale things there, you choose kind of like your strategy and hire a few people there, and then in a certain function, and there is the dynamics then. Compared to the product, scalable product business, then it needs to be kind of like really kind of like scale quickly, and kind of like the shots you're taking, you kind of like really kind of like need to do it even better than I would say in the professional. So it's kind of like at the same time you're facing the competition. So it's like
do you feel it's riskier?
Of course, and but that's like
it's part of the
part of the thing.
Risk and reward. I think the reward can be greater as well. So the risk has to be higher. I mean, that's.
But for us, it was like more like that. We just wanted to do this. Back to your question that in the Google space, we have been here as well so long working with Google, and we know how the organization works, and. We actually waited a while that is Google interested in this space and providing this kind of like that, because we had been using Google Sites and but it was just
we used to do Google Sites development back in the day, and I know some
so it's fun and but we knew that there's going to be a market and then it's just like. Then it's obviously testing it out and having first customers. So obviously how it helps that you have the professional service company side on the side, that you have the first customers kind of like coming in from your own
that must have been easier.
So that's like compared to that starting right from the beginning.
Cold. And then you don't know any customers, whereas you have this easy introduction of like, hey, we made this product, you're our customer, you trust us. Do you want to try it out for us, simply for free at the start.
And that's the kind of like if looking back and if we would have even realized this kind of need or problem, probably not back in the days 10 years ago. You learn to kind of like understand those needs and challenges that organizations had. So and plus then you have those networks.
The networks are key.
We have gotten to know each other as well. So,
exactly, and we would have sort of been aware, maybe not know each other as much, but been aware of each other certainly previously in the Gaps business. And I think the network within the Google ecosystem, as you know, I'm a big advocate of it, and we have utilized it and grown our own network and helped other people to grow the network more. And I think with the small ecosystem of Google, it's even more important. Do you know what I mean? Rather than maybe in the Microsoft world where there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of partners and you can get a bit lost in it. In Google, it is growing, but it's still fairly small. Do you know what I mean? In the greater scheme of things, and so. Everybody knows each other, and that's good and bad, and so I think it's important for people to find ways to work together.
I think it's been so nice because I think it's a kind of like a family community. So and it's nice. I think.
I think you guys really get that across. You're talking about culture, and I was talking to Mike Klein, your IC expert. And we're talking about internal communications and how I was reading the report that you guys commissioned from him recently, and I know it was published I think last week, was it at the summit? And we got a copy, which was great, and I was having a read of it before this, and he talked in that about how internal communication now, it's not this top-down approach for employees. You can't just sort of say to them, this is what you have to do, and they're going to go do it. Employees are part of the conversation, and I think that piece that he spoke about of them not just being an audience, they're not just watching, they're also speaking to potential employees who are thinking of joining your company. They're speaking to investors, they're talking on social media, and so you need to really be emanate that company culture, and I think you guys really do that without. And I think it's interesting because you're in the IC sort of space, but also within your own space you have partners and employees going out into the marketplace and saying, Happeo is a really, no pun intended, happy place to work, or maybe every pun intended. But without that being forced, it's just obvious from coming from you at the top and other execs within the business that this is the type of company culture that you guys want, and it's almost I assume that's what you want to help your customers do.
Sort of like everyone emulate, in this world.
Emulate sort of what we're doing. This is how we want things to be, and like we do the same in our own business from a services point of view. We work remotely. We don't have an office. We use WeWork and things like that. We're in WeWork at the moment, and so I think it is important as businesses and as entrepreneurs to sort of be the change we want to see in the world, type thing, to rob a phrase.
Definitely.
Okay, so we were kind of talking about the report there and the internal communications report that Mike had done, and I think what I find interesting about Happeo is not just that you guys are an app or a product. Mm-hmm. You're not just sort of saying, hey, there's this problem and our app solves this problem. You're saying we are part of this industry, of this community, internal communications, and we were working with internal communications experts. And I think it's quite interesting that you've gone and gotten this report commissioned. I don't really see other app-based or product-based companies in the space doing the same thing, where you're saying we don't just want to be in this space, we want to help develop it and influence it. What are the challenges that internal communicators have on a day-to-day basis, and how do they feel they should be solved, and how can we sort of use that to maybe influence the development of our own product? Am I off the mark there? Or is that?
Yeah. So internal comms have waited like such a long time, a platform that would be easy to use and easy to admin. And how we saw the market was that software as a service product have been out there now like 10 years or so. There have been CRMs and then multiple HR software, obviously IT, full of different kind of
intranet things.
But the IC world has been kind of like not untouched. Obviously we have like Slack type of toolings, but that in a larger organization, like how you can actually make the company happier and more productive in a way of like, intranet tends to be that, there's this tool, use that, and that's it. And internal comms didn't have any kind of like power to say that actually
this isn't what we want.
We would like to engage our employees more. But I think it's like during this time that we are living now, I think companies are understanding the power like that employees actually have. And if
which goes back to the piece we were talking about earlier.
So if they don't provide those tools, if they don't provide that kind of like platform that people can actually put the voice out there, so it's kind of like challenging to attract new talent in, and if you're just running things on top-down angle, so that's
and the top-down approach doesn't work. I mean, that comes back, and it's interesting when we talked about like the top-down sort of way of thinking is going away. When you think about the tools are top-down as well. Like an intranet is like, here's an intranet, go and find the information and download the HR document or download the the required contract or something. It's not a tool that's like, hey, engage with me and have a conversation with me. Whereas for me, that's really what is different about Happeo compared to other solutions, is that social element, the channels piece where you can engage and talk and sort of have that actual internal comms communication conversation. I think it's really interesting that you guys are looking to engage with the space as well as just be part of it. Do you know what I mean? That you're not just trying to say, here's our app, buy it. Do you know what I mean? It's
we need to change the whole industry in a way that why we did that report was that we want that the internal comms industry as well sees that they have lots of potential. So having tools how to
give
actually
them a voice as well.
Inside of the organization. So it's typically like marketing and sales and product who have led the decisions on top of like finances and HR. But like internal comms is big piece of the important part of the organization as well.
And it's a differentiator as well.
Yeah, totally. And if you think about the organization that actually communicates really clearly globally in different time zones and brings their employees happiness. That's the key. I think many organizations are missing. So
those organizations tend to be the game changers. They tend to be the ones who are innovating and moving faster. And being able to move at a much more rapid pace because their employees are kind of on the same page. I mean, Mike had an interesting point when I was chatting with him about the difference between what an organization thinks its culture is and what it actually is. And internal comms is trying to sort of close that gap.
Yes.
And if you've got good internal communication, you've got a good platform and the other stuff around it, obviously it's not just the tool or solution, it's the culture as well, and the change management piece. But if you've got all those pieces and they all come together, then that gap should be really small because the employees are part of that conversation. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's what you guys are really trying to do.
And the world is changing all the time, more and more to the remote work. Randstad Sourceside is a good example how they actually surveyed their employees like before and after the Happeo platform. The end results were that now their employees can actually understand the strategy better, their peer-to-peer relationships are better, and all of
everybody's on the same page, basically.
Like everyone's engaged about the. I'm actually working in Randstad Sourceside.
Yeah.
Because their stories is that they are in multiple different locations, so it's like it's. When building this kind of digital culture, it's not that easy that you just think that everyone right away goes to inside of your head what you have been thinking about the culture, if you say that these are the values. So it's not enough. It needs to go kind of through the whole organization, and organization needs to become a communicator internally, and that's the thing. And in this app world, so to say that we are in email, so it's kind of formal, so it's not that great internally to build culture, and then chat can be kind of become quite noisy in a way that and it's not
you can't find anything. That's often the challenge.
It's not as visual, so that's kind of where this kind of long form communication
and it is difficult, do you know what I mean, because we're being bombarded with so much information now as individuals, both at home and in our businesses, and so it is hard for people, do you know what I mean, to filter down what's the information that's relevant for me, for my team, for my particular department or organization, and I think Happeo definitely tries to solve that, do you know what I mean, but I think it's a challenge that we're constantly, all of us, working on in this sort of space. So it's an interesting one, but it's a difficult one as well, difficult problem to solve. Where do you sort of see Happeo going, maybe in, I don't know if you want to talk about short term, sort of 18 months, if there's any plans you can let us know about that aren't too secretive, and then maybe more long term where you sort of see things 3 to 5 years?
As we discussed earlier, that it takes a while to build the platform, and I would say that we are now currently 10 to 15% of our vision.
Wow.
So there's still more to come.
Still more to do.
Yeah. So I think
you heard it here first, folks. 10 to 15% of the vision. Okay.
Yeah. So
interesting.
The platform is now there, but there are so many things that we can still develop for the internal comms people and for the end users and for the company itself. So there's going to be more features that are kind of making the organization even more productive from the internal comms perspective. And there's going to be features that are kind of you have heard the story that we're also integrating to tools that the organization is using. So more integrations
that's great.
coming.
And I think that kind of global search, and Meredith
yeah.
was talking about that. One of your enterprise salespeople at the conference, when she spoke, one of the key benefits of Happeo is that sort of global search. You can search Happeo, and so integrating
most used features.
And so integrating more of a customer's other solutions makes sense.
Yeah. But there is so much more to come, and what's interesting that like building the kind of like groundings for the house or home. So now we are kind of like there, and it's good, but there's so much more that I'm so excited, because all these upcoming features, they are kind of like even more tangible. So even though the platform is already
it's already awesome, even at 15%. Wow. That's cool. And in the more long term, where do you kind of see Happeo going over the next sort of 3, 5, 10 years? Are you guys even able to think that far ahead?
Yeah,
with
well,
the
we have
product?
just started. I have said to myself to dedicate to this like 15, 20 years, like no matter how long it's going to take. So, and we'll see how things go. But
I think things change so quickly in our industry. It's almost hard to predict. The type of app, or the sort of product roadmap will change. As we know, Google changes theirs. So often within, say, a period of certainly 5 years or 10 years. I think it'll be interesting. Maybe we'll do another video in like 18 months, and then 3 years, and then 5 years. We'll see where we're at. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. It's been a really interesting conversation, and I look forward to seeing where it goes.
Yeah.